talk rack pulls. Pretty early on in a novice's lifting career, the deadlift becomes too stressful to recover from every single week. And what happens when this occurs is people start missing their sets of 5. And what people commonly do is drop the sets of 3 or doubles or singles, and that's not always the best way to go about it. What we try to do here is to take the parent movement of the deadlift and break it up into 2 partial range of motion movements. One, the halting deadlift from the floor, which covers the first half of the deadlift, and the top half, which we're going to do today, is the rack pull. Now, both of these allow us to handle quite a bit of weight, but the lessened range of motion allows for better recovery while still being able to handle heavy weights. So let's talk about how to set this thing up. To place the bar correctly for the rack pull, we're looking for a range of motion somewhere between the tibial tuberosity, which is the bump just below your knee, to kind of mid-shin. There's like a 4 or 5 inch overlap here, depending on where you want to set it for your weak point. That's where you want to put it. Anything higher than that, to the knee or above the knee, or lower than that, becomes almost too dissimilar to a deadlift and doesn't carry over that well. So I'm going to set the bar up with our shins actually in contact with the bar. Now, what people tend to do with the setup that we use on a deadlift is start with their shins 1 inch away from the barbell. Now, this is correct when the bar is on the floor, able to set the knees, chest up, and go. For the rack pull, if we set up with our shins 1 inch away from the bar is actually set up ahead of midfoot. When we grip it, hips will be too low and the shoulders in line are actually behind the barbell. If it's heavy enough and you're set up this way, it's not gonna go. What we're trying to do is actually set up our shins in contact with the barbell, not with the knees kicked back, but just a normal anatomical position with the shins in contact with the barbell. Now from here, it's just like your deadlift. You're gonna bend at the waist, take your grip just outside your legs. You're not gonna drop your hips. Take a big breath, look out a point in the wall about 10, 15 feet in front of you, squeeze your chest up, and then we're gonna pull. And by pull, in this case, I'm actually mean pushing the floor away. The rack pull takes a long time to get good at because you have to learn when you squeeze up and push down, it's gonna take some time for the heavy weight to get going. The shins are on the bar, take my grip, squeeze my chest up tight, tension, tension, and push through the floor to lock it out. So what are the uses for this thing? As we mentioned before, splitting up the deadlift when it becomes too heavy into halting deadlifts and rack pulls alternating each week is a great way to go about your programming to continue moving forward. Another use for the rack pull is for someone who's rehabbing a sore back or an injured back. Often pulling from the floor with someone with a sensitive back becomes too difficult for them to do. So starting the bar up on the leg a little bit and setting their back and starting with a partial range of motion allows them to handle some weight while working their way back to the floor. Also, we've seen it several times in our gym where lifters come in who just aren't able to pull the heavy weight off the floor. They're just not able to do it, or they're not confident in doing it. We see this a lot with older lifters who've had sore backs for years and years and years. So we like to start them high up on the rack and work them down every week, a little bit at a time, until they're finally on the floor pulling a full deadlift. These are all great ways to use it, an extraordinarily beneficial exercise.